In the 15th century, one family in the Italian city of Florence became so wealthy and so powerful that popes borrowed from them, kings owed them, and their word could shape the fate of nations. They did not command the largest army or rule the most land. Their power came from something quieter and far more modern. They controlled the money. This is the story of the Medici and the birth of banking as we know it. We left off in China, where paper became money by the will of the state, but far to the west, in the merchant cities of Europe, money was being reinvented in a completely different way, not as paper, but as an institution, a machine for gathering wealth, moving it, and above all, multiplying it. To understand the Medici, we first have to understand the problem they solved. Medieval Europe was a patchwork of territories, each with its own coins and rulers. A merchant traveling from Florence to London might pass through a dozen currencies, and carrying gold across a continent of bandits was as dangerous as ever. The early bankers offered a solution that should now sound familiar. A merchant could deposit gold in Florence and withdraw it in London using a written document. The bank had branches in many cities, so the gold never had to travel. Only the paper did. It was the same insight the Islamic world had reached centuries earlier, now built into a permanent international institution. But the Medici did something more, and here we reach the true engine of banking, an idea so powerful it still runs the world economy today. When people deposited gold in the bank for safekeeping, the bankers noticed something. On any given day, only a few depositors came to withdraw. Most of the gold just sat in the vault, untouched, and so the bankers realized they could lend that idle gold to others and charge interest, as long as they kept enough on hand for the few who came to withdraw. Think carefully about what this means. The same gold is now in two places at once. It is recorded as belonging to the original depositor, who can still spend it, and it has been lent to a merchant who is now also spending it. The bank has, in a very real sense, created new money, not by mining it, not by printing it, but by lending out what it holds in trust. This is the deepest secret of banking. A bank is not a warehouse that simply guards your gold. It is an engine that takes idle money and puts it to work, expanding the total money moving through the economy. It is how a bank makes its profit, and it is how much of the money in the modern world is actually created, not by governments but by banks making loans. The Medici mastered this system, and they did it with one more crucial tool: meticulous records. Their bookkeeping was famous for its precision, tracking every branch, every loan, every deposit across their entire European network. In an empire built on lending, the ledger was not just paperwork, it was survival. Careful records were the difference between a bank that thrived and a bank that collapsed. And that quiet discipline of accounting would soon spark a revolution of its own. With this machine, gathering deposits, lending at interest, and tracking it all with care, the Medici became the most powerful bankers in Europe. They financed the trade of a continent. They lent to monarchs who could not otherwise pay their armies. They even became bankers to the papacy itself. Money had bought them a seat at the table of kings, and they used that wealth in a way that still shapes our world. The Medici poured their fortune into art and learning, funding the very heart of the Renaissance. The masterpieces we treasure today, the flowering of European culture, were paid for in no small part by the profits of banking. Finance, for all its dangers, had become an engine not just of power but of civilization. But the story of banking is not only one of glory, because this new power, the power to lend, to multiply money, to create wealth from promises, carried within it a profound danger, a danger we have circled throughout this entire series. If a bank can create money by lending, and a state can create money by printing, then the door is open to a temptation as old as money itself. the temptation of too much. What happens when the money multiplies faster than the real wealth beneath it? What happens when a flood of gold or silver or paper washes over an economy? We have hinted at this danger again and again. Now we confront it directly. In our next chapter, we meet a king so astonishingly rich that when he traveled, he gave away so much gold, he accidentally wrecked the economies of entire cities. A true story of how even real, glittering gold can become a curse when there is simply too much of it. Money had been invented, trusted, written, and banked. Now we will watch what happens when it floods. And that is where our next season begins.